I won't get any metrics from the radio program for at least a month or two. Hello there, Christopher. Welcome.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How are you today?
Good, good.
Oh, did you hear what Biden did recently? He did a whole EO or banning stuff or whatever, firearms or firearms or
Oh
whatever.
yeah, they've been talking about. I haven't seen the details of it because he just signed it today. They've been talking about it for days, but I think he just signed it today. Here, hang on a second.
I think probably a good thing to talk about would be discussing if the executive even has the ability to make law, and it because I mean the Article 2, Clause 1 says the executive only has executive powers. I think you should elaborate on that.
Yeah, well, there's you'll have plenty of time to ask that. All right, where is? Hang on a second. I gotta grab something here. For those of you just joining, we will get started in just a couple of minutes. I'm trying to figure out they've moved or they've eliminated one of their the service I use has moved something and I can't find the tool I used to use.
You should hear what they say at the airports and stuff about the whole mask mandate and whatever, and how it's a federal law and whatnot. They constantly play that on the announcement speakers or whatever. You know, it's a federal law. It's a federal law. Federal law. Federal law.
Well, you're talking about people who wouldn't know if federal law could bit them in the behind.
Yeah, I got haggled actually.
Well, that actually is something I'm going to be talking about. Where is that? I'm now. I didn't set it up beforehand, so now I'm stuck. Okay, well, I guess I'm not going to have it live on the website today because that app doesn't seem to be working. But we are on YouTube. We are on Periscope. We are here in the Zoom meeting, and we're coming to the top of the hour. So hello and welcome, everyone. This is going to be a slightly different version of the Constitution Study live stream. I have some news. If you are either on the mailing list or on get my newsletter, you probably have already read it, but the Constitution Study is now 5 days a week, every weekday on the America Out Loud network. That's good news. That's more people that will get to hear and learn about the Constitution. The bad news is, well, I'm not going to be doing, I've stopped doing my Thursday videos. The pre-recorded videos I've stopped doing. I don't have the time for it, but I do want to try keeping these live streams going because I think they're a great Q&A. So for now, the live streams are safe. We're still going to be doing them the second and fourth Thursday of the month at 7 p.m. Eastern time, but I'm not going to have a prepared, I used to start out with a little prepared message and no, it's just going to be Q&A time because that's what we spend most of our time here doing anyway. Tunnel Lord did ask, so I probably want to tell you a little bit of the story about America Out Loud. I actually sent an email. The America Out Loud has both a web presence and a radio presence. They're an online radio network. And I contacted them saying, hey, I'm sharing my articles all over the place. Would you be interested? And never heard back. So, all right, most places didn't think much about it. I got an email saying, do you have time, like Monday morning to talk to this guy? I said, yeah, sure. And he says, we want to put you on the radio. What? It's like, yeah, we checked out your site. We like the videos. You like what you're doing. We think you'd be excellent on radio. We spent some time working out the details, but they really, really said they wanted me on the radio. And today was my very first episode. Now, I'm a little disappointed. Well, not disappointed. I knew it's going to be rough at the beginning, right? There's lots of little things to do, little things to learn, little nuances, little tricks of the trade. And I'm still learning them. But the good news is the Constitution Study now will be heard 5 days a week. It's on America Out Loud. You can go to americaoutloud.com. You can find their apps in the Apple, Google Play. They have an Alexa app. It's also on iHeartRadio. So if you want to share more of the Constitution Study, feel free. But as I said, I'm basically turning these Thursday evening videos into a Q&A. So Tunnel Lord, you already kind of prepped us for a question. Why don't you let everybody know what your question is and we'll discuss it.
All right. So all legislative power is bound to the legislature, Article 1, Section 1. All right. And you have the current administration's, the president right now trying to make an EO and treating it like it's a law. Yet that isn't the case. That no lawmaking power is given to the executive because Article 2, Section 1 doesn't mention it. It just mentions executive powers. Could you further elaborate on what those executive powers are?
Right. Okay. The first thing we want to record is an executive order. An executive order is supposed to be nothing more than an order from the chief executive to the rest of the executive department. In the corporate world, it's called a memorandum. But of course, this is government, so we got to give them fancy names and numbers and all sorts of stuff. That's what they're designed for. Now, there's a couple problems that we need to deal with in your situation, what you're asking about. Article 1, Section 1 says, all legislative power herein granted shall be vested in a Congress of the United States, which shall consist of a Senate and a House of Representatives. Legislative power is the power to make law. So you are correct. All legislative power of the United States is vested in Congress and only in Congress. The problem we have is we let the Congress run amok. And Congress started delegating their power to the executive branch. Generally, what would happen is there'd be some really tough legislation, and some group of legislators realize that, if they don't do the details, if they just say, we want to have this great legislation, we've fixed this problem, but we're going to have the executive work out all the details. One of the best examples recently is the Affordable Care Act. Congress, when they wrote the Affordable Care Act, basically said, we're going to give the director, the Health and Human Services, power to do stuff. Right now, problem number one: Congress has no authority. There is no authority delegated to Congress in the Constitution for them to delegate legislative power to anyone. So they basically have been getting away with lying and cheating for decades now. And you see the results. The results are a much larger executive, a much more powerful executive, because now we have all of these agencies, by the way, about 90% of which are illegal, but we have them. And the president went from someone, again, unless you were in the military, you didn't care much about him. But now he's called the most powerful man in the world. Why? Because Congress has stolen our power and given it to the executive. So we have a pen and a phone, right? We all remember that. And the president says, well, he can do one of two things, one of which is sort of kind of legal, one of which is completely illegal. So, if the president in effect writes law, if he creates some new rule or regulation outside of something that Congress has delegated to the executive branch illegally, then it's illegal. It's a complete violation of his oath of office. In fact, I would be more than happy to see the gentleman impeached for that. And by the way, that goes just as much. I said the same thing about Trump as I do about Obama and Biden. I don't care whether you're a donkey or an elephant. In either case, if you're violating the law, you shouldn't be there. The problem, the real problem, this is the real concern. So Congress has created this Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives. Now, if you look at the Constitution, Congress has, we gave Congress the power to regulate the sales of alcohol, and then we only mostly rescinded it. We said, the sale of alcohol is illegal, and then we repealed that amendment, but we didn't really repeal it. We repealed most of it, and we basically said the federal government can work with the states to still regulate it. So, okay, they can have a Bureau of Alcohol. There's nothing in the Constitution about regulating tobacco. There's nothing in the Constitution about regulating firearms or explosive, both of which are arms. In fact, the Second Amendment clearly states that to infringe on a person's right to keep and bear arms is prohibited. It's illegal, it is prohibited, but we don't hold our governments accountable. We don't treat them as servants anymore. They are not our masters, they are our servants, and we don't treat them that way. So when President Biden does all this illegal stuff, basically people whine and complain and stomp, and maybe they go to the government and say, he can't do that, but they don't do anything about it. Now, there are several states that are trying to. There's several states that are passing laws to basically not enforce federal executive orders about gun laws or any federal laws that restrict the ownership of or carrying of firearms. I'm cautiously optimistic about these. Cautiously because I've seen this song before. It's 2013, I believe. Kansas passed a law. They call it the Second Amendment Protection Act. And they basically said, listen, any firearm or firearm accessory made in Kansas, sold in Kansas, remains in Kansas, is not subject to the Federal National Firearms Act because it's intrastate, not interstate. And in fact, I remember it was Governor Brownback at the time, Sam Brownback, and he was on a press conference, says, hey, if any federal agent comes in trying to illegally enforce a law in violation of this act, we're going to arrest them. And two guys, foolishly in hindsight, believed their governor. One guy built a suppressor in Kansas, sold it to a guy in Kansas, and BATFE came in and arrested them both and hauled them off to jail. And Kansas did, the Kansas government did nothing. They didn't raise a stink. They didn't haul ATFE agents into jail. They didn't even show up and help defend the men who listened to them. So passing a law is one thing. Enforcing that law is something completely different. And again, it's the same song, second verse. Federal government cannot infringe. It is illegal for them to infringe on your right to keep and bear arms. Yet when they do it, they aren't punished. We've written that law. We refuse to enforce that law. We've created states, governments to protect our rights, to protect us specifically, among other things, from the federal government. And they don't. They go begging to the government for permission to do something. You know, that's a parent begging their child to go buy groceries or something like that. It's ridiculous. Until we start enforcing those laws. And that may mean some drastic stuff. Now, I've talked to my county sheriff before, and in fact, now that the EO has been signed, I want to set up another meeting with him because I want to know what he's going to do to protect the citizens of this county from these illegal orders. And if his answer is good, I'm going to stand with him while he does it. If his answer is not so good, I'm going to warn him that, you know, I'm looking for someone else to be sheriff next year. So, you know, we live in a time where I just recorded something about this earlier today. We talk as if the Constitution is going to save us. Actually, it was my very first episode. I questioned, does the Constitution matter? My very first episode in America Out Loud. And the answer is yes, but only if we, the people, use it. The Constitution's ink on parchment. It's not going to get up, walk into the White House, walk into the Oval Office, and dope slap President Biden for signing illegal executive orders. It's not going to do that. The question is, are we going to hold the governments in the states and the governments in Washington, D.C. accountable to the law and the restrictions we placed on them? And if we're not going to do that, we can't complain. You know, you can't complain when a child misbehaves if you've never corrected them for previous misbehaviors. So does that answer your question, Tunnel Order?
Yeah, I just was another suggestion. So because the title on YouTube is like just the Q&A, might be a good idea to put like, you know, Constitution study Q&A colon, and then you list like the topics, like, you know.
That's just it. I don't have a topic. I'm here to answer questions. Whatever
Well, yeah.
topics you guys want to talk about.
I was just saying that so that like if people don't just brush over that, they know kind of what it's about. But yeah, that's my suggestion.
Yeah, I mean, if I have a topic I want to start off with, I'll put it up there. But at the moment, you know, I've got so much stuff I'm doing with the new program, and also working on the Constitution Scholars. You know, in previous episodes, previous talks, I come in and I talk for 10 or 15 minutes, and then we go completely over directions with questions, and those are the best parts. So I said, you know, let's just work on the best part. So any question, this is the time to ask it. I don't know, you know, the system is telling me I've got one person on YouTube, but I don't trust it because I frequently get more comments than people that are actually watching according to the app. So again, I don't trust Google as far as I can throw them. But you know, again, I've got people here on the Zoom call. If you're on YouTube or if you're on Periscope and you have a question, type it into the chat. Type it in, you know, and I'll take a look at it and we'll see what we can do to answer it. But Chris or Andy, whoever it is on YouTube, you guys have any questions? And I hear a whole lot of silence.
I don't have a question to formulate at the moment. Still trying to think of a question.
Well, what's on your mind? I mean, this is intentionally kind of informal. I mean, I'm not looking for you to come up with a short dissertation for me to argue against. You got a question, pop it out there. You got a thought on your mind. What's been top of mind lately?
Let me think. I think today, one of the Illinois sites posted two states, Wisconsin and Michigan, revoked the mask mandates. They cited them unconstitutional from the courts, supposedly, what I was reading.
Mm-hmm. Yes, let's talk about mask mandates, because this will lead me into something else I want to talk about. Another announcement I wanted to make, but I've said all along, and I'm rephrasing it slightly. Government issued mask mandates are illegal. They are a deprivation of your liberty without due process of law. They are illegal. In fact, when state or city or county actors issue and attempt to enforce a mask mandate, they are committing a federal crime. It is a federal crime, 18 U.S.C. 242, to deprive someone of a right protected by the Constitution under color of law. So, and I've told this story before, right? I was at an event. It was an outdoor event. That county had just issued a mask mandate. The coordinator came by and said, well, we're on private property. They'll probably leave us alone. But I says, I don't care. They have no legal authority to do that. It's an illegal order. I simply refuse to comply. And I handed her a piece of paper with all the constitutional things that it violated, and with the copy of 18 U.S.C. 242. And her response was, if the police show up, I'll point them to your table. And I said, fine. I've done the research. I'm more than willing to tell them, no, you petty tyrant, that's illegal. You can't do that. Now, what's interesting is that is for government issued mask mandates, not private business mask mandates. Now, the cases that I've seen so far, again, they basically say the government has no authority, and I have not read the actual opinions yet. And I want to read the opinions because I don't trust the media as far as I could throw them. If the media told me the sky was blue, I would go out to double check. So when the media tells me that they did something, I'm not trusting that. But I know at least a couple states, the courts have said it's unconstitutional, it's illegal. I believe one actually didn't say that the mask mandate, that it wasn't, that forcing people to wear a mask was an issue. They actually said the problem was the governor did it by executive order rather than by the legislature. So I'm hearing a lot of stuff that I want to do some more research on, but it's important to understand, Alexander Hamilton in Federalist Paper 78 and Chief Justice Marshall in the Marbury versus Madison Supreme Court case both said an act of Congress or an act of a legislative body that violates the Constitution is void. It's empty. It's meaningless. We don't need a court to say, oh, yep, nope, that's unconstitutional. No, we don't. The courts are not given the authority to determine what is and is not constitutional. And in fact, the Supreme Court case that most lawyers point to say, yes, the Supreme Court gets to determine what is and is not constitutional, never actually says that the Supreme Court gets to determine what is and isn't constitutional. It actually says the exact opposite. It says when we review a case, yes, there's judicial review. When we review a case, we review all the law, including the Constitution. And if the law is in contradiction to the Constitution, we must follow the Constitution. And so should every agency, every department of every government. That's Marbury versus Madison. So which leads me to an interesting dilemma, and it comes from an announcement. I've been invited back to Bismarck, North Dakota. Looks like it's going to be either the last weekend in June or maybe the next to last weekend in June. We're still trying to settle down the dates, but I'm going to be up there, and I'm not sure I want to fly. Now you have to understand, I love flying. Well, I don't love hanging out in airports and being crammed like a sardine into a tin can. But when I was a teenager, I took flying lessons. So I love the act of flying. I don't know that I want to fly because I don't trust the airlines to not do something incredibly stupid and say, you can't fly unless you have a vaccine passport. Or, you can't fly, or we're not going to fly into Tennessee anymore because your government did something stupid and actually tried to protect their own elections. Who knows? I don't trust them.
You should.
What does that have
Oh
to
man,
do?
I got, like I was saying, I got haggled at the airport. I mean, my mask was like underneath my nose, and they're like, "What are you doing? Put the mask on!" And it was bad.
Yeah. Last time I flew, I was in Minneapolis airport. No, it was a lot. I saw a young couple. Now this is last summer. So the coronavirus had been around long enough that we knew that it really only was dangerous to the elderly and the and the ill, the people with serious illnesses. And what did I see? I saw a young couple. I doubt they were much older than their late 20s. They were wearing masks. They were wearing face shields. They had a small child in a stroller. It looked like it was wrapped up in saran wrap. The whole thing was covered in plastic. It's fear. It's fear porn. The problem we have is because we don't know what the law says. We don't know what a law is, apparently. And B, we trust, too many Americans trust hook, line, and sinker what they're being told. They never verify. Classic example. I was at a homeschool conference last month in Nashville. I had signed up for this months before. I'd paid to have an exhibitor table. I had 2 speaking engagements there, and we showed up, and they wanted me to wear a mask when I brought my gear in, but after that, nobody was wearing masks. So we all took our masks off, and I set up my table, and we had a great time, and everything was fine. And people came in that evening, and it was wonderful. And the next morning we show up and we're all getting handed these little warnings that said, listen, the facility owner, the people that own the property are not happy with the compliance with the mask mandate. They're afraid the county health department will come in and shut them down. Now, I had more than one discussion about this with people trying to enforce this mask mandate. Now, my position's been the same. This is a private company on private property. They have every right to say, if you want to come on our property, you have to wear a mask because it's a private property. I was very upset with them because they bowed to an illegal county tyrant mandate. And that's, it's like, I understand you're doing this, but you're bowing to a tyrant. And oh, by the way, you're telling me that I cannot trust you to defend your own rights from a petty county tyrant. This is an international corporation. We're not talking a mom and pop shop. We're talking an international corporation. They have more lawyers than most. They probably have more lawyers than most companies have employees. All right, and they aren't willing to look at a county tyrant, a petty county tyrant, and say, no, the law says you don't have the authority to tell us what we do on our own property. Thank you, but no. So my response to them was, okay, I have a choice to make. I've spent several $100s to have this booth. Do I abandon the booth or do I wear the mask? Now, I decided I was going to wear the mask, but I also told them one other thing. If I cannot trust you to protect your own rights, much less my rights on your property, how can I trust you with anything? This place is owned by a hotel chain. I've stayed at their hotels, dozens of times. I don't want to stay at their hotels anymore because I don't trust them. Because they listen to a petty tyrant, and we're more worried about a petty tyrant than protecting their own rights and the rights of their guests. So if I can't trust you with a little thing like a mask mandate, why am I going to trust you with things like, my credit card information, my travel itinerary? Even the fact that, hey, I show up. How do I know I'm not going to show up one day and you're not suddenly going to say, hey, if you don't have a vaccine, you can't stay here. Sorry, not going to trust you anymore, which is my issue. So here I'm planning on traveling to North Dakota, and I'm not sure I want to fly. Again, I love flying. But I don't want to deal with these, I don't want to deal with these nincompoops that listen to the fear porn, that genuflect to the petty tyrants at the CDC, that ignore the facts and the science, and have contributed to the destruction of the economy of this country. You know what? I don't think I want to help them. So what are the two reasons I brought that up? And not, one is, hey, mask mandates. How do I deal with mask mandates? Here's the other. Again, end of June. They're trying to fix in. They're trying to schedule it for the last weekend in June. It'll be a Friday and Saturday in the Bismarck, North Dakota area. I want to do some other things, especially if I've got to drive. If I end up driving up there, I want to do stuff along the way. I want to meet people. I want to have events. I don't care if we get together in a coffee shop and just chat for a while. I want to meet people as I'm going through up there. So think about that. Keep that in mind. Keep an eye on the website. If I'm not sure what I'm going to be doing, what my travel schedule is, but a lot of it's going to depend on, hey, it's like Tunnel Lord. I think you said you're in Idaho, which is, granted, that's not on the way, but I don't know. I'm really to the point of not real interested in bowing to petty tyrants, and I'm not going to trust. If I can't trust the company in a small thing like a mask mandate, I can't trust them. And if I can't trust them, I don't want to do business with them. So that's that rant. Any more questions? It looks like I got some more people on YouTube. That's cool. I'm looking for more questions. This is now going to be a Q&A. What's going on? Let's see. Let me take a look at some of the current events, what have been going on. See if we can spark some conversations. Oh, all right. This is going to be on the show next week. I've already decided I want to do this. I saw this video, and hang on a second. Let me see if I can get it up here and share it. First, I got to get rid of. I'm really getting tired of YouTube. YouTube sticking commercials in every 2 minutes. All right, so I've got this. Let me share. Whoops, we don't want to share. I want to share this. I want to do this and this. So I think you're going to lose my sound as soon as I do this, but watch this video. I'm not going to put you through the whole thing, but watch a little bit of this video, and then we want to talk about it.
I'm Morgan Freeman. I'm not a doctor, but I trust science. And I'm told that for some reason people trust me. So here I am to say, I trust science and I got the vaccine. If you trust me, you'll get the vaccine. In math, it's called the distributive property. In people, it's called taking care of one another. Get the vaccine. Help make our world a safe place for us to enjoy ourselves again. Please.
Okay, that's about as much as I can take before I want to barf.
Go away, petty. Wait, no, sheep. No, parrot. I think parrot's better. Sheep are useful. You can get, meat and fur off of them. Parrots are just kind of talk and squawk. That's about it.
All right. So all right. I'm going to analyze this a little bit, but this is what, like I said, this makes you want to barf. By the way, Morgan Freeman has an incredible voice. I give him credit for that. But Morgan Freeman plays make-believe for a living. I'm going to say that again. Morgan Freeman plays make-believe for a living. He's good at it, and he's been paid well for it. but he plays make-believe for a living. He comes out and says, listen, I'm not a doctor, but I trust science because someone told me that I should take that the vaccine works. All right. Are you, I listened to that and I'm like, I'm the chutzpah. I'm told people trust me. I don't know why people trust him, because he plays make-believe for a living. There's problem number one. Why in heaven's name do the American people trust actors and actresses? They play make-believe for a living. Speaking of that, why do we trust baseball players? They play ball for a living. He's not a doctor. You're right. He's not a doctor. He says he trusts science. Okay, Mr. Morgan Freeman, the scientific process says you come up with a hypothesis, you test the hypothesis, you then modify your hypothesis based on the results of the test. So when I look at something and I say, okay, I have a hypothesis. The hypothesis is, does the vaccine work? I've seen some numbers that seem to indicate possibly, but we're possible. All right. We're not definitive. Everyone looks and says, hey, since the vaccines come out, the infection rate has gone down. Does anybody not know that coronaviruses, the incidence of all coronaviruses goes down in the spring and summer months and it gets worse in the winter? Has anybody noticed that the common cold is worse in the winter when people are cooped up? Has anybody noticed that, hey, we'll start letting people outside, we stop cooping them up, coronaviruses don't spread so well. So, all right, I have other issues with the vaccine. I have, and those are mine to deal with. If Morgan Freeman wants to spend time telling people that he thinks they should get the vaccine, I don't care. I do not go to Morgan Freeman for medical advice. I am so over this idol worship of actors in Hollywood. I'm like, yeah, Andy says he's still struggling to get over that video. I know. To me, this is the pablum that is used to feed a defeated people. We're not free anymore when we're being ruled based on, people in Hollywood. Based on, I don't care. I don't care if when I was younger, there was a commercial on it. It's become a joke, right? I'm not a doctor, but I play one on TV. And it was an actor who played a doctor on a soap opera or something. And he was selling, he was hawking something. And that was his line. I'm not a doctor, but I play one on TV. He doesn't even claim to play one on TV. Why are we listening to this idiot? Now, whether his information is correct, he provides no useful information in this video. He doesn't come out and say, okay, we've done these tests and we found these outcomes. And yeah, there have been this is the percentage of people that have had problems. There have been some people with problems, but the percentage is really, really low. He doesn't give you any of that. We're supposed to trust him because he was the voice for the Penguin movie. Disgusting. And it's ridiculous. It's the infantile, it's making us infants. I can't quite get my tongue around the word at the moment, but we're not even going to think for ourselves. We're going to let actors tell us what we should and shouldn't do. Did he seriously say, for whatever reason, someone told me that if I told you I got it, you would too? I maybe. I'm sorry. I was holding back the vomit. This is the crap that's running our country. We're going to listen to the guy that was on the Penguin movie. Okay, yeah. You know what? He played God in the movies, didn't he? What was it? There was a movie out or two, and he played God. So we're supposed to listen to him. this is, I mean, talk about, I don't know if this is, I don't know. I don't know if this is him being manipulated or he just thinks he can manipulate the people. But if you're going to make a medical decision based on what an actor says, you really need to have someone to talk to serious. You need your head examined.
They've got a bad head.
I've got a bad head. You know, this is the crap. So this is going to end up on the show. I just picked this up yesterday. I trust no actor or actress. Well, Motate, that's a good place to be. And again, I have no problem with actors. If you're good at it, if you're an actor or an actress and you're good at it, great. If you play ball and you're good at it, wonderful. You know, the whole thing with with Major League Baseball and Georgia, you know, that's a whole nother level of stupid. I am not I've never been a baseball fan. If it's on TV, you know, I had a cousin that used to watch it. You know, when I would over his place in the evening, he'd often have a game on, and I'm like, sorry, not interested. I've been to a couple games live, and they're pretty good for about 6-7 innings, and then I'm bored, right? But I used to be a big football fan. I grew up watching the New York Giants. My parents were rabid Giants fans, so I grew up watching football every year. And I don't watch football anymore. I couldn't even tell you who was in the Super Bowl because when they stopped playing football and started playing, politics, I'm not interested. You're there to play ball. You play ball, I'll watch it. You want to tell me what you want to tell me, you know, how I should live my life? You want to tell me that you multi-millionaire for playing with a pigskin are part of a repressed people? Give me a break. Not interested. No, thank you. Now, I am a race fan. I'm a race fan. I don't watch NASCAR anymore, and in large part because they started getting too stupid. Part of it was the competition, the way they dealt with the competition. Part of it was how they were dealing with the politics of it. And I'm like, you know what? Too bad. I'm not going to deal with you anymore. I watch other racing. I almost stopped watching Formula One. Formula One, some of my favorite racing. I got real close last year to stopping because of the mask nonsense. But you know, it's like, if you're gonna, you know, I'm there to watch a race. I'm there to watch someone play a game. I'm not there to be preached to. I'm not there. I refuse to watch ESPN. ESPN is not a sports channel anymore. It's a political propaganda channel. Do you suggest one to have their state constitution, U.S. Constitution side by side when studying the state constitution? Hang on a second, Motate, and I will answer that. But you know, I'm not here. I don't call for boycotts. Boycotts are show. I'm here to. Everybody needs to make a rational, reasonable decision. What is more important to you? Now, if it's more important to you to do what Morgan Freeman says than to actually find out for yourself whether or not the vaccine makes sense for you, what age is he talking to? Do you have any comorbidities? Is there any medical information? No. Right? And the same thing with baseball and with Delta Airlines and with American Airlines and with different hotels. You know what? I'm tired of being taken advantage of. I'm tired of being preached to when I'm not in church. I've had enough. And again, that's why I think I don't want to fly to North Dakota, because I don't trust these airlines to do what's right. They might do what, you know, I expect them to be woke and stupid and crazy. Okay, Mo has a good question. She asked, should we have the state constitution and the U.S. Constitution side by side when studying their state constitution? I don't know if it's necessarily side by side. I mean, everybody learns a little differently. But there is one very important point that revolves around the 10th Amendment. Everybody here, I'd tell you to recite it, but that's, a little too elementary school. All right. The 10th Amendment basically says the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution remain with the states unless they're prohibited to the states, in which case they remain with the people. Basically, it's what it says. Why is that important? Well, when you're studying your state constitution, you need to understand what powers they've delegated to the federal government, to the United States. So it's a good thing to look at and say, okay, and again, I haven't studied all 50 state constitutions, but ones I've looked at, there's not a lot of overlap in the constitutions, right? The federal constitution deals mostly with foreign affairs, right? The federal government's supposed to be focused outside the country. The state constitutions deal with domestic affairs, what's going on inside the state. So depending on how you learn and what your goals are, it may help, but there really is no overlap in the powers delegated by the two different constitutions. For example, the federal government has no authority to prosecute murder. Murder is not a federal crime. Why? Because nowhere in the Constitution is the federal government given the power to enforce laws regarding murder. By the way, neither is theft. So all of these these federal civil asset forfeiture laws and dealing with theft, the federal government is not authorized to deal with drug abuse. I don't think it's important that you have them side by side, but what may help somebody is as they're looking at powers, take a piece of paper, put the state on one side and the feds on the other, and then mark this power belongs to this entity, because it can only belong to one or the other. I can think of no real situation except the enforcement of alcohol taxes, thanks to, was the 19th Amendment or 20th Amendment? I forget. When we repealed prohibition, we said the feds and the states could enforce alcohol regulations jointly. So with the exception of alcohol regulations, I can't think of anything that is not either Fed or the states, never both. That gets a whole double jeopardy question, but it's a good question. Again, a lot may have to do with a person's learning style. So anything else? Come on, anyone else? We were on a bit of a roll. I'm glad that helped, Mo. That's what we're here for.
I'm trying to remember another question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm trying to remember it.
Okay. Well, you keep working on that. Anyone else? Come on. You're racking your brain. All right. Well, let's talk. Well, all right. Let me pick something out of the hat here. Okay. Let's talk about the filibuster. Why not? It's on there. It's in my list. Let's talk about the filibuster. Does everyone here realize that the filibuster, there's nothing in the Constitution about the filibuster? However, Article 1, I believe it's Section 5. Yes. Section 5, Clause 2 says each house may determine the rules of its proceedings, punish its members for disorderly behavior, and with the concurrence of 2/3, expel a member. So each house gets to set up its own rules within the framework of the Constitution. Now, the filibuster has a long and storied history. When the Senate became, the Senate's often referred to as the upper chamber. Reminds you a little too much of the House of Lords, but the idea being that our framers figured that people's emotions would run high, that they would tend to jump on things. The House, so they expect the House of Representatives to be just throwing all sorts of, passing all sorts of legislation, because we tend to react emotionally. There's got to be a law, so somebody would pass a law, and it'd come out of the House of Representatives, and it was expected that when it went to the Senate, since the Senate was the representatives of the states, appointed by the state legislatures, that things would cool off. They were referred to as a saucer, where the hot coffee from the House of Representatives was cooled. So it was designed as a house of debate. So although the Constitution doesn't say they have to, the House of Representatives, they can have, they schedule limited times for debates. They only require a simple majority. All that stuff exists in the House but the Senate, when it was set up, when they set up the original rules, they said, no, we're going to have unlimited debate. We're going to allow, people the chance to talk as long as they want, until a supermajority of senators say, no, we're done talking. Let's vote on this. That's called cloture. Now, what I understand, and I've only researched this slightly, originally, you needed 3/4 of the senators to vote for cloture. So if you're a senator, how many people have seen, what's his name? Mr. Somebody Goes to Washington. Drawing blank on the name. Mr. Smith. That's it. Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. So if you're a senator and you want to get up and talk, you can talk. And as long as you keep talking, it doesn't matter about what, you hold the floor of the debate. Now, there are parliamentary rules, but as long as you hold the floor, as long as you don't yield the floor, the only way they can shut you up and move forward is if this supermajority votes. And again, it was originally, I believe it was 75, then it was 67, now it's 60. Now, why would one political party want to get rid of the filibuster? It's simple: to get their way. Now, I find it interesting, and again, I try not to be partisan when it comes to political parties, a pox on all their houses. I really don't care. I have just as much complaint. I have plenty of complaints against Republicans and plenty of complaints against the Democrats. They're just different complaints. But what I find amazing, most people, when they hit their thumb with a hammer, they learn not to do that again, at least to try not to do that again. But there are Democrats in the Senate, after seeing their hand smashed with a mallet over the Supreme Court nominations, because one of their predecessors had eliminated the filibuster for judicial appointments. They said, we're going to get, debate. Obama was in office. Their guy was in office. They were in control of the Senate. We're going to, we don't like the fact that the Republicans are holding us up. So we're going to get rid of the filibuster for this, for federal judges. We don't want it for Supreme Court, but we're going to set the precedent anyway. And then somebody else is in office. Now there's a Republican in the White House making nominations. The Republicans control the Senate, and now they're whining and crying because they're not being heard because they eliminated the filibuster. All the Republicans did say, okay, you said it doesn't matter for federal judges. We're just going to include all federal judges. There you go. They stepped on the rake, took the handle straight to the face, and now they're going to do it again. See, when we passed the 17th Amendment back in 1913 and we changed the Senate from the representatives of the states to basically kind of a goofy House of Representatives, this is not a surprise. Now the states, not only do the states not have a say in federal legislation, but now we have senators who are not responsible to the states, who the people of the states do not hold accountable, acting like spoiled children. In fact, most politicians seem to act like spoiled children, but they're sitting there going, we ate too much candy. It gave us a stomach ache. So give us too much candy again. And I don't, I would think that a rational human being would have learned that it's dangerous to assume a power that will one day be wielded against you. Apparently, that doesn't work with the leadership in the Democratic Party. All right. Anybody come up with another topic? Another idea? Another thought? No. Did I see? I don't know about red flag laws. I know, Andy, that Biden signed a bunch of executive orders around gun control. It's not gun control, by the way, it's people control. I haven't yet looked to see specifically what those EOs are about. Again, red flag laws are illegal because they deprive you of your liberty without due process of law. Somebody shows up with a badge at my door and says, we've been told you may be a danger to others. We've come to get your guns. I'm going to say, hell no. I'm going to call the FBI because if you step 1 foot inside this door, I'm going to call the FBI because you're breaking the law. And he says, well, I have this red flag warrant. That's not a legal warrant. Why? Where's your probable cause? Where's the oath or affirmation supporting the probable cause? If it doesn't have those two things, it's not legit. Therefore, that's an illegal warrant. It's a void warrant. It's a meaningless warrant. You're going to have, that makes this an unreasonable search. You're violating the Fourth Amendment. You're depriving me of my liberty. That's the Fifth Amendment. You're depriving me of my right to keep and bear arms. That's the Second Amendment. Those are 3 rights protected by the Constitution that you are violating. That is a federal crime. That is 3 counts of a violation of 18 U.S.C. 242, each of which punishable by 1 year in jail. And if you even threaten to pull that firearm on your side, that's 10 years in jail each. Do you still want to come in and try and take my guns? Because I'll tell you what, I'll find a lawyer that wants to make a boatload of money. There should be, I've said, if ever I come into money, if ever I've got just gobs and gobs of money, I want a foundation that's going to support lawyers that do nothing but protect the rights of citizens, because lawyers ought to be able to make a small fortune just in these types of cases. And I'd love to see some enterprising lawyers actually start doing this. Hey, wait a second, federal law. They've broken they've committed a crime. Excuse me, FBI, where's the investigation? So, red flag laws, again, it's why I talk to my sheriff, because I want to make sure that if somebody with a federal badge shows up, 911, yes, someone's breaking into my house and stealing my stuff. They claim to have a warrant, but it's not valid. I need a deputy here right away to arrest an intruder for breaking and entering and attempted theft. That's what we're looking for.
I have another thought. So I've actually been curious because I've run into arguments, against constitutional supremacy, and they more go along the line of they think constitutional supremacy is the idea that from one of my local commissioners, quoting my local commissioners, any little bird town can declare any law null and void, and if that was the case, this would be a zoo. And clearly doesn't understand what supremacy of the Constitution. but that isn't the only place I've kind of ran into that kind of thought process slash mindset. That's sort of, yeah.
Well, anybody that's been to law school has had that drummed into their head. I refer to it as judicial supremacy, that the courts, especially the Supreme Court, has the final say on what is and is not constitutional. There's just one problem. Actually, there's several problems. Problem number one, the Constitution doesn't say that. Nowhere in the Constitution is the United States given the authority to determine, well, let me rephrase that. Each house has the ability, I should say, each branch of government has the ability to act within their understanding of the Constitution, right? But the ultimate arbiter of what the Constitution does and doesn't say is actually the majority of the states. The states are the party of the compact that is the Constitution. So if one town says, you know, even that becomes problematic. So I understand the idea of like, well, if everybody gets to do whatever they want. No, everybody doesn't get to do whatever they want. That officer, if he's a part of of government, he swore or affirmed an oath to support the Constitution, what the Constitution actually says. He did not swear an oath to support this, what the Supreme Court says. He didn't support an oath to support what, he swore to support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the states, and any laws, depending on his oath, made pursuant to those. So if the idea is nobody can challenge what the Supreme Court says about the Constitution, then we no longer live in a free republic. We live in an oligarchy. 9 people in black robes rule 330 million people. Is that what he's saying? Because that's, if you're saying you need the Supreme Court to tell you what is and is not constitutional, you're not a free citizen in a republic. You are a serf in an oligarchy. Now, the point that he has that is right is, if you stand up for what's right, that doesn't mean there will not be consequences. Right? If, again, law enforcement officer shows up at my door, says, we heard we're going to issue a red flag amendment, a warrant, and we're here to take your guns. And I'm saying, no, that's an illegal warrant. I'm calling the sheriff. He may still come in and arrest me, and I will go to trial. And knowing our legal system, I'll probably get convicted. I'll probably spend time in jail. What is your liberty worth? Now, an interesting factoid, and I've only got sketchy proof on this, is that only about 3% of the colonists fought in the Revolutionary War. 3. See, the vast majority of the people are not going to stand up and say, hell no. But we need to fight. We need to decide where we're going to fight, and we need to support the people that are willing to fight. Because if I'm standing here alone at my door, I don't stand a chance. If I have the deputy and the sheriff and my neighbors going, no, the Constitution says that warrant is invalid. No warrant shall issue except on probable cause supported by oath of affirmation, yada, 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 yada. That peaceful noncompliance, and that actually pointing out that it is the law enforcement officer that is actually committing the crime here. Benjamin Franklin said, we must all hang together, or we will surely all hang separately. That's the point. It's not a question of chaos. It's a question of what is the standard. And he's telling you that the standard is not what the Constitution says, not what he swore an oath to support. It's what 9 justices in black robes decide. That is not a free country. and he has violated his oath of office because he's placed the word of a servant of the people, of a subject of the Constitution, above the actual Constitution itself. So when Hawaii, when the Ninth Circuit says that we don't care, what this says, well, the Constitution says the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, but you can't carry openly. You don't have a right to carry openly. You don't have a right to carry concealed, but that's not a violation of the Second Amendment. All right. That's just stupid. That's a meathead. That's dead from the neck up. That is the most, it's just a stupid statement. But if he's going to put that above what the Constitution actually says, that it says that right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. I'm working on an article. It has to do with a court case that involves the community caretaker exception to the Fourth Amendment. There is no exception to the Fourth Amendment. The Fourth Amendment doesn't say you're safe against unreasonable searches, except if the law enforcement officer is not acting as a law enforcement officer, they're just there to check on grandma. Doesn't exist. But yet, this, a court says it exists, so I'm going to take what the court says over what I can read. Are you going to believe the court or your lying eyes? That's why I do this, because we've been believing the court, and it's time we start believing our eyes and what the Constitution actually says. Okay, wait a second. Over here, Jasper says, unreasonable search and seizure. Once they implement things such as red flag laws, then that becomes reasonable, because basically getting the Fourth Amendment, greatly showing them. Actually, it does not become reasonable. It just says they are criminals. Right? A red flag order is a criminal act. It is a violation of the rights under color of law, which is a federal crime. It is a criminal act, which means when I call the FBI, I'm calling, yes, in their eyes, but who decides? The Constitution starts out with these three words: we the people. Not we the courts, not we the subjects, not we the servants, we the people. We created the Constitution through our states. We are the sovereign. We decide. It says that a government only, a government's only just power comes from the consent of the governed. How do we consent? We created a constitution, said, here are your powers, nothing more. Now, granted, lawyers, if you want to understand the Constitution, never ask a lawyer, because I've talked to dozens of them, and I've had one say they actually studied the Constitution in law school. Almost all of them say, we didn't study the Constitution, we studied constitutional law. To which my response is, do you know what constitutional law is? That's an opinion of a judge about what another judge said, about what another judge said, about what another judge said. It's a game of telephone with the law. If you have taken that office, you swore to support the Constitution, not what a judge says about the Constitution. Which is why when they say, well, in their eye, they'd say, well, we think that makes it. No, beat it into their heads. No. No is the most powerful word in the English language. Right? They study case law, which is common law, which is superseded by the Constitution. I'm sorry, it does not say that. And what you're doing is criminal. And again, if I'm sitting there all by myself, pounding the desk and yelling and screaming, not much is going to happen. It's why I'm excited about the America Out Loud, because I want more people to hear this and to recognize you are not servants of government. We used to call them public servants. They serve us, not the other way around. And it's about time we started treating them like employees and not like our masters. So you want to pass that? Fine. You're breaking the law. Oh, by the way, you're threatening my property and you're threatening my life. I've got a great video coming out a little over a week. April 19th is the anniversary of the Battle of Lexington. I just edited it. It's been uploaded. It'll be ready to go a week from Monday. I think it's one of my better videos because I talk about this whole imbalance of power and how we are walking into another shooting war because we refuse to learn from our history. That when government oppresses its people, like the Declaration says, when the government stops protecting the rights of the people, it is their right, it is their duty to alter or abolish it. The only question is, will the American people stand up before they're squished by their own creation? I have this argument all the time with lawyers. I'll tell you a funny story. Around election time, right after the election, when there was all the hoopla about the voting and the electoral college, I was asked to consult with a group for one of the states was having, I won't say which, but it was one of the states was having a problem. And we are on a conference call with me and this other person and someone who is a constitutional lawyer. In fact, this lawyer has spent 10 years litigating electoral college cases. They were an electoral college expert. They were a constitutional law expert. They were electoral college expert. And we're on the phone and we're talking. And I said, you do realize that, basically your state violated the Constitution because you changed the manner, the manner of selecting presidential electors was changed by someone other than the legislature. Therefore, those electors are spoiled and they shouldn't count. And that decreases the number of electors that is needed to become president. She goes, no, the number is 270. I said, no, it's not. She goes, yes, it is. I said, look at the Constitution. A majority of the electors appointed. If they weren't legally appointed, they don't count towards the total. This lawyer had done this for 10 years. Now, and I give this lawyer credit because this lawyer said, I never realized that. They learned something. And I give the lawyer a lot of credit. That I was expecting that lawyer to bow up and just kind of like, no, I'm the lawyer. I've done all this. Nope. This lawyer said, I never noticed. She went back and she looked and said, you're right. I never noticed that before. Lawyers are not evil. I pick on lawyers a lot. But we have to remember that lawyers have been lied to since they entered law school. Judges have been lied to since they entered law school. But the answer is to educate them with facts. You want to go back to science? Here you go. Constitution says right here, where's your probable cause? If there's no probable cause, that warrant isn't worth the paper it's written on. Now, you want to go break the law? That's your choice, right? Law enforcement officer, if you want to break the law, that is your choice. I cannot stop you. But that doesn't mean there won't be consequences. And if it means, I honestly believe there have been Americans who have already lost their lives to out of control governments because they were willing to stand up and say, you know what? No, the law says this, and I'm going to stand up for that. And the sad thing is they stood alone. When are we going to stand up and say we gave you power? We determine the boundaries of that power. We set the agenda, not you. And if you can't live by that, we'll fire you and find someone who will. Now that I've ranted for a little while, anybody come up with something new while I've been ranting? Nothing yet. Okay. what I may do, again, I may go back and do things like take some topics I'm looking at for the radio program and talk about those. But I want to make sure this is mostly about answering your questions. It's, it's, I have plenty of time when I'm here alone in my office and I'm talking to a microphone and I'm talking to people, and it's a one-way street. And I'm very blessed by the opportunity that I've been given. I am really looking forward to it, but I enjoy the most when there's a give and take, when if I'm talking to you and you learn something, that's wonderful. If I can answer one of your questions and you learn something, to me, that's even better. That's why I want to make sure that that these are more about answering questions and discussions about what's going on. I mean, that's how the Constitution study started. I had this crazy idea that we should get together and read and study the Constitution the way my friends and I study the Bible. That's why it's called Constitution study. It's basically a Bible study, but with a Constitution instead of the Bible. And our first one, we would meet every other week and we would talk and ask questions and discuss and debate. And, I think that's kind of more, what I want this to be is questions and what is on your mind and things like that. So we still got a few people online. Do we have any more questions coming across? Jasper, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm kind of curious what happens over the next few weeks. I'd be thrilled if you would share not only the website, not only the Constitution Scholar site, but the talk show now as well. You can find AmericaOutloud.com. Just go to shows and you'll find the Constitution study. I'd appreciate it if you share it. I'm really kind of stepping out on a limb making this happen. I've had some people help me, but I want to make sure that it grows and that it's self-sustaining. So anything you can do to help share that would be wonderful. Like I said, if I end up, I'm almost assuredly going to North Dakota. The only question I have is, am I going to drive or am I going to trust the airlines? And if you have, if you're in anywhere along that route, so I'm in Middle Tennessee. So if you go from Nashville to Bismarck, right? That means I'm probably going to be going through like Missouri. Well, I can go up through Illinois and Minneapolis, kind of head up that way, or I can head west and I can go up through Nebraska and South Dakota and go through like Missouri, Nebraska, South Dakota. So if you're anywhere along that Missouri, Iowa, Nebraska, South Dakota, Minnesota, and you got something, we can set up something for that time frame. I've got time in my schedule. Friday is booked. Saturday is booked. Thursday is not booked yet, but I've offered a Thursday evening, but I have time in there, and I would love to meet people along the way. And again, if you want to set up some sort of event and we get a bunch of people together, that's great. If you just want to get a bunch of friends together and sit down and have lunch or a cup of coffee and talk, that's fine too. I'm actually trying to set something up in my local county with a bunch of the local business owners to sit down and talk about their rights. I've developed a new 1 hour session called class called Knowing Your Rights that hopefully I'll have up on this available on the site soon. Let's see. Oh, I got a couple popping in. Okay. Andy asks, I've been curious. I know sheriffs have the ability to enforce things like the mask mandate, but I don't understand why. Oh, they have the ability not to enforce. Okay. Well, that's an excellent question. And I'm glad you liked the radio today. I thought I'm still a little off, but I'm my own worst critic about the radio show. So hopefully I've already put a couple in the can. They're a little better. We'll see. But so let me explain the sheriff, because a sheriff is a unique office. Think of it this way. The sheriff isn't appointed by the federal government. So he or she doesn't work for them. They're not appointed by the governor. No, they are elected by the people of the United States, or at least the people of that county, right? So the sheriff is an employee of the county, of the people of the county. He or she is elected by the people of the county, which means he or she is responsible only to the people of the county. Now, some state constitutions may play with that. Again, I haven't studied them all. They may play with that, but in general, the sheriff is accountable only to the people of the county. That sheriff swears or affirms an oath to support the Constitution of the United States and of the state in which the county exists. So that means that, and again, I think New York has some weird thing where the governor has the authority to remove a sheriff. That's probably dubiously questionable, but that's the empire. So in general, the sheriff is the chief law enforcement officer of the county, and they are responsible only to the people of the county. They do not report to the governor. They do not report to the state. They do not report to the federal government. They report only to the people of the county. That means they have a lot of that flexibility, which is why it's so important, why you want to talk to them. You want to know where they sit, right? What is their position on things? But you also want them to know that you'll support them. When I met with my sheriff, by the way, my sheriff gave me the best answer to a question I didn't even ask. I had been there a while, and I said, listen, I know you're a busy person. I know you're a busy man. I don't want to take up your time. He goes, no, I work for you. Take as much time as you need. That actually sat me back in my chair. I'm like, really? That's a sheriff that understands. He works for the people of the county. They're his boss. Now, in response to that, my question to him was, okay, this is what I want. This is what I expect. When I pick up the phone and I dial 911 and one of your deputies shows up, I want them to understand that their primary responsibility is to protect the rights of all the people involved. That is their primary responsibility, not federal law, not state law. They're there to protect the people's rights. He goes, absolutely. I said, good. I said, then if you need me to support you in that, we had been talking about gun laws, and he says, no, I won't enforce those gun laws. I said, fine. You need someone to help support you in that? I'm there. You need someone to show up at a press conference and stand behind you? I'll be there. You need someone to walk to be with you, to go to some sort of legislative committee hearing, and there. You need advice on the Constitution? I'm there. I will support you if you protect our rights. That's that hanging together I keep talking about. So that's important. Before we head out, I want to remind everybody about the Constitution Scholars website. It's been growing, kind of fits and starts, but it is growing. And I've been getting some interesting questions popping up on there. It is free to join. Join the Constitution Scholars, free, constitutionscholars.com. I'm going to ask you to at least join your state group, if not the United States, the federal group. Because what I've been doing for the last few weeks is, as I'm going through news articles, as I'm going through prep for my show, I see a lot of stuff that maybe doesn't relate to the show, not to the U.S. Constitution, but to state issues. And I've been putting those in the state groups. So when you register and you click your activate link and you log in, you can go and see all the different groups. And there's one for each and every state. Find your state, sign, join it. Doesn't cost you anything. And then when you check it, you can, you'll see these are the things I'm seeing that might be of interest. Hopefully we'll start a discussion in that state. So with that, I don't think I've got it unless someone else has a last minute thing they want to throw at me. I think we've got it all covered. I want to thank everybody for taking the time and joining me. I will post this video. It's already on YouTube, but I'll post it on the website probably tomorrow. I'll try to do it by lunchtime. And again, let's keep up the good work. Let's all hang together so that we don't have to hang separately. And let's come back here. We'll see you in a couple weeks right here at the Constitution Study Live. Hopefully, and by the way, bring your questions. See you then, guys and gals.